Okay, hello, good morning. Um, wow, moving from like last night, like not last night, but the day before, like everything was pretty shitty. But last night, like things suddenly improved a ton. So I'm feeling super refreshed today. Though, of course, even though like we had an actually normal like night, like getting to bed, everybody getting to bed, like all the both of our kids, and we got a ton of sleep, my girlfriend and me. And then this morning, like I wake up first, then my girlfriend and our 5-month-year-old wakes up, which was a first ever. And then our 4-year-old woke up last, which was super nice. Like we woke up as a normal family, but then we get into new issues, right? Because now it's like a new, completely new thing, like where everybody has to adjust, and like it ends up with our baby crying because he needs to sleep, and then our 4-year-old gets upset because she doesn't want to put on her clothes, which is probably a reaction to everything being like new. And then it's like this really shitty mood, and everybody is yelling. Like we're not yelling, but we feel like we're yelling. And and the funny thing is that when we finally get out the freaking door, we have this wonderful family moment where we go by all the other like apartments down the road. Like my girlfriend and our daughter, they're holding hands, and like it's such a calm mood. We're just thinking about all these other families who's like looking out the window and seeing this happy family together. How do they do it? And it's like we don't know how to do it. If they saw how we were inside before we got out, they could totally relate to that. Anyway, sorry. If you don't have kids, you can't really relate, but it's, yeah. Anyways, I made up some, like the Firebase Excalidraw service. Like you can access any Excalidraw, and we got into this situation at Code Sandbox where we had a session and multiple people wanted to change the same thing. And Excalidraw has this feature, like collaboration feature. And I don't think we're able to like implement that specifically because it's a peer-to-peer thing where I think they just pass the actual elements that you're updating. And we can't really do that with Firebase. Maybe there's a way to figure that out, but Firebase is like the way it's implemented now. It's like a storage of the whole Excalidraw, and I want to try to build upon that first, and then we'll see. Because there isn't any API in Excalidraw that's like, oh, I just changed this element, because you can move multiple elements and you just get a dump of the whole thing every time something changes. So we're going to do that. So the live sync, it's not going to be live collaboration, it's rather going to be live sync. So whenever you change something and it actually saves to Firebase, which is a debounced thing, it's going to, like, the others can listen to this and then they can figure out what actually changed from my version, and then they'll update themselves. So I thought I would kind of explain my thought process, how this will actually work. And I did a tiny bit of implementation. But yeah, I have no idea if this is actually going to work. So we have Firebase, we have a storage effect, like a storage environment effect. And then we have the Excalidraw feature, which consumes this storage effect. And then we have Excalidraw, which is the component that actually shows the like it's our Excalidraw component, and that has an Excalidraw canvas component, which is actually Excalidraw. And the way I thought about this is that through this storage effect, the Excalidraw feature can like subscribe to changes, and when that subscription gives like the whole thing, like the whole data, Excalidraw data, which is partly elements, it's the app state and the version. So all of that stuff hits the subscription callback. And inside the Excalidraw feature, that is going to trigger an action that will pass that data. And inside the Excalidraw feature, let's see, how can we draw this? Maybe we can just zoom into it. So here it will subscribe, will kind of trigger an action. Actually draw this action that will go into the reducer. Let's give that another color, and let's say R. And then that reducer might change the state, and it changes the state if the version has changed, right? Because if you're at one version, then suddenly a subscription triggers and suddenly the version has changed. And that means that somebody else actually changed this Excalidraw. So if the version has changed, it will figure out what has actually changed with the data coming in, with the data I have. So I need to write like this pure function that takes two sets of elements and then kind of figures out which element has actually changed here. And the way I do that is that I look at each element also has a version, and I assume that that version will always increase. So I basically just look through all the elements, and the elements also has like an ID, a nonce, and that should also be the same. Meaning I can compare two elements and its version and figure out, okay, I'll keep the one with the highest number. I want to do that really effectively because there can be quite a few elements. Anyways, and then I'll return like the new set of data. Like given that there is a new version, I'll return a new set of data, and that will move into updating pair, updating from pair. That's the state. Let's give that. I like, for some reason I think about state as orange. I don't know why. So that will return, an updating from pair state. Updating, what the hell? Updating, oh, it actually gave, that's interesting. Updating from pair. And then when that state hits, I'm actually passing the state down to so this gets like the, I don't need to, come on. So the Excalidraw is like using the feature, and here we get like the context and the dispatch, right? That's what it exposes to Excalidraw. And what we're passing down to the actual canvas is, currently we pass in like context data. Let's just do this. Data, that's what we actually pass down, which is the initial data. And after that, it's like it has internal state. Excalidraw has internal state. So the data that is passed down is only used the first time to populate the initial state of Excalidraw. After that, the data changes, but it doesn't actually affect Excalidraw. But what I'm going to do is I'm also going to pass down the state. And then the Excalidraw canvas component can look at, okay, if we move into this updating from pair state, we are actually going to update the canvas or update the scene. There's a function for that. And I looked into the source code, and that function just replaces all the elements. Yes, but that's the thing. And then what happens then when I update the scene, that will trigger a change. So when we are in updating from pair and we get a change, we'll move back into, dirty state, really, because it had a change. That's the idea. And then this should just work. I'm not sure if that made total sense, but that at least that's how I reason about it now. So let's look at some code. And I'm actually writing tests first. So what I did is I went into the storage, and the first thing I did is I introduced a new interface, subscribe to changes. which takes the user ID and the ID. This is to like pointing into Firebase. And then I added a listener, which gives the Excalidraw data. And I haven't actually implemented this in terms of Firebase yet. This is so nice. Like it's yelling at me because I haven't implemented the interface. But I did implement it in like the test environment. So since this is a custom thing, it's not something that returns a result. I created a custom create subscription mock. And basically what it does is it just creates the function and it allows me to trigger a subscription update. That's what this trigger does. And it so I was in the middle of this. This should be like data. So that passes the data. And yeah, so I can actually trigger that to move the state forward. So what we're going to test is that if I'm in edit mode, do I move to updating from pair when I trigger this subscription? That's what we're going to test. And the thing is that it's not only when you're in edit mode you're going to deal with this. You're going to deal with this in several states. Like if you're in edit, if you're in dirty, if you're syncing dirty. Yeah, we'll have to review that. But that's the different states we're actually going to allow moving into this updating from pair, given that the version has changed. So let's try to express this as a test first. Let's see. Yes. Oh, yeah, sorry. I started implementing this. Now this is running on the latest version of React states. So now you can see that I haven't talked about that. So the Excalidraw feature has kind of exploded. There was too much state and effects there. So it's basically split up now. So you have the Excalidraw feature, which has a reducer, and then it uses different effects. And then it exposes the Excalidraw reducer there. Yeah, and I wanted this to be... Oh, what was I naming that? Because this isn't the reducer. Shit, I changed the naming conventions. Because this is the reducer. This is what I call... Yeah, sorry. This should be Excalidraw. Like that. And this is... Well, okay, let's just call it reducer. I'm supposed to call it Excalidraw reducer, but that's not such a big thing. Anyways, so, and then the reducer is in its own file, because now the transitions function returns a reducer. And the nice thing about this is now it doesn't have to redefine this object and all these handlers. It just does it once. And then it returns the reducer that operates on that object. So here we have the full like state machine. We're going to fix this. And then we have the effects where we actually split it up into like conceptual pieces. So we have one effect for dealing with the visibility change, one for the clipboard, and then we have use subscription. I'll talk about that shortly. And then we have use storage effects. And as you can see, I'm like using the exec multiple times. So in the documentation, you kind of see the exec is being used with the single use effect, but it doesn't have to do that. You can split this up however you want. The exec just ensures that you actually match a valid state. Cool. But let's talk about this use subscription effect. Now, the thing is that this subscription should live across multiple states. We don't want to turn off and turn on the subscription every time we change the state. And this is really interesting because there are, and I actually updated the documentation on this. Like how do you control, like when you run effects based on like the state, how do you control exactly when it should run? So there are really there's actually 4 different scenarios. Or approaches where like I'll talk about the 4th one. But the first way of doing it is that you use an effect and the dependency is the context itself. And that means that whenever the context changes, meaning that even though it is on foo currently, and for some reason we change something on the context and it's still foo, the foo will trigger again. So it will trigger every time the context changes, even though the state is the same, because the context changes, right? And sometimes that's the behavior you want. The other way to do this is that you actually make the actual state a dependency. Like that's what needs to change for these effects to trigger. So in this case, if we are on foo, the first time it triggers foo, but if you change the context and you keep the foo state, it won't trigger again. So this effectively moves between the states when it actually changes the states. And then we have the third one, and that is the one where you want to run the effects across multiple states, which is the thing we're doing now. We want the subscription to be on as long as you're in, what was it? As long as you're in dirty, edit, updating from pair, syncing, dirty, or updating. Those states, that's when the subscription should be active. If we move into any other state or the component unmounts, we want to dispose of that subscription. And we can use the matcher for that. And the good thing about using the matcher is that it makes you think about every time you change the state of the feature, in this case, it will tell you like, oh, what about this subscription? How do you want to deal with this state? Should the subscription be active or should it not be active, right? So this matcher is becoming like more powerful every day. And it might feel like it's silly that I have to like, why can't I just say it should be active here, here, and here? Why do I have to express these other ones? But this being exhaustive is really, really, really important, because that's exactly how we are able to make the code more predictable. It just yells at you every time you make a change to the feature or like the state. It will yell at you through these effects and the UI and say, how do you want to handle this new state in all these scenarios where you handle all the other states? And that's really, really important, because if I were to do like an if state equals this or state equals this, and I would introduce a new state, there wouldn't be any yelling. And it wouldn't help me to actually think about how this new state introduction should work in all these different scenarios. I would have to kind of remember all of this. So I just really love that concept. It's a hard sell because there's more code and it seems unnecessary. But yeah, I hope my explanation made sense. Whoa, we haven't gotten to any implementation yet. Let's see. So basically what we're saying here is that it should subscribe whenever it's dirty, edit, updating from pair, syncing, dirty, updating. And then whenever we move to unfocused, error, focused, loaded, or loading, like it won't start the subscription, and if it's there, it will dispose of it. Cool. So that's the subscription. We have that. So yeah, and it dispatches a subscription update. I was a little bit quick with the naming, but yeah. And that means, yes, we have a subscription update, and now we need to actually deal with that. So as I said, there are 6 different states that might get this action. So we have to introduce that. And I think we should introduce that as something, since it's going to be repeated. I think we already have a few repeating things here. Yeah, we can. Yeah, we can review that later. Anyways, so we have, what should we call this? update from subscription, and this would be the action here would be pick action Excalidraw action, and it's the one called, oh shit, no, sorry, type of, I think, oh, I haven't tested this. Oh my god, maybe this doesn't work. Ooh. What was it called? Subscription update. Oh, I'm not sure if this actually works. No, this doesn't work. Oh, is it because I don't have it here? Type of is not assignable to type string. Fudge, I didn't think about that. Like, okay, the symbols, they are there to act as private, so that you actually have private dispatches, but you're not able to pick those. Like, you can't, well, like I can do it manually. It's not an issue. Basically what it is that it's type and type of. So it's just subtyping the actions to a specific action. Yeah, maybe pick action and yeah. Anyways, let's continue. And the context, it doesn't matter. Would be Excalidraw context, like that. Let's just write this out first. So this should have data, and then what we want to return from this is we want to return an Excalidraw context from this. Let's get some help with that. So we have the current context. And now we have to check. Let's see. If data version is not equal to current context. Oh yeah, I have to check. Yeah, this is the part, like lifting actions like this makes a ton of sense because you're going to reuse it. But the problem is that you have to do a lot of manual typing, because at this point you have no idea where what is the context, like what states are you going to use this action with. Like, it doesn't know that, so you have to like explicitly say that. But what we can do here, we can say base context instead, and then like this action can only be used when we actually have access to data, which is part of the base context. And it, like, I don't like, yeah, what I don't like about this is that you need to have more information about how it works, instead of just, okay, I want, in this state, I want this action to be handled, and this is what's going to happen. Yeah, it's this dry versus explicitness. But maybe, yeah, I'm not very fond of these lifting of actions. Let's try doing it without it, and you can see how much better it is. So for example, in edit, we have a subscription update, and so what we can rather do here, maybe that's better. Yeah, so instead of lifting actions, yeah, this might be an idea. So because now you get the typing for free, right? Current context. And then what we'll do is that we'll rather create a helper function that actually produces the new state. What should we call this? Update if changed, for example. Or go to well, update. Yeah, let's just call it update if changed, and we'll see how we'll deal with that. And what we want to do, we want a new data element, and we want a current context element. Oh, data element. Maybe we can just use data. So this is the new data, the old data. And I guess we don't really need more than that. Yeah. Yeah, and maybe I'm thinking about this the wrong way. Maybe we should lift the action, but when you lift an action, you don't want to match. Oh, this is interesting. Maybe I've been thinking about this the wrong way. Because, yeah, let's, because the thing is, update if changed. Let's sorry about this. Because when you lift the action, you don't really care about what is the action and what is the current context. You don't care about that. You just want to deal with some data and return a new state. So that's definitely something you want to do. You want to return a new, that's what lifting an action means. Like it needs to return a new state. And then here, we just want to make sure that we actually receive some Excalidraw data. That it needs that. And then we also want some Excalidraw data on the context. And then, oh yeah, okay, let's, fuck. Oh, can't I do this? Yes. New data, old data. This is interesting. So what I'm saying now, I just need some data here. I don't care how like what the action looks like. I don't care what the I don't care about which action it is, and I don't care about what context it is. I just care about getting some data in the action and having some data on the existing context. This makes sense. And then I want to return a new thing. So if data, if new data.version equals the old data.version, why does it say, oh, wait, why does it, oh, Excalidraw context. This should be Excalidraw data, sorry. Version, oh yeah, this is interesting because, oh, god damn it, this doesn't work. Because now if it's the same, we just want to return the same context, whatever that context is, which is this thing. So you do need to have a sense of the current context. God damn it. Okay, but then no. Okay, I think this like if it could work like this, it would be just fine. But if it can't, I don't think this is the best way to do this. So I would rather say, so the dry part here is actually dealing with new data, Excalidraw data, and then old data. Yeah, I should update the documentation on this because I don't like this lifting of actions. All data is also Excalidraw data, and this should return an Excalidraw context. That's perfectly fine. Is it? Update if get changed data. How do I want to express this? Oh, I don't want to do this twice. God damn it. Okay. Current context, Excalidraw context. Let's pass in the context as well. So if the version is the same, I'll just return the context. If the version is not the same, we have to use this helper that's going to figure out whatever. So what we want to do here is if there is an actual change, we want to move to this updating from pair. So we do current context, updating from pair, and data is the new data. Why is this complaining? Oh. Yeah, I don't, oh, god damn it. I don't like passing in the current context here because it can be anything. That's the thing. Maybe that's the rule of thumb, is that when you create these action helpers, don't pass in the context, because each state can have different values. And the thing here is that, like, if I rather did like base context here, it would work. But then this doesn't work, right? So you would have to do like Excalidraw context and base context. So I could do this, which basically means, okay, I need an Excalidraw context here, but it needs to like be part of the base context, because I'm going to return data here. But I think this is too much to know about. Oh, thanks for the comment. Yeah, it's I'm a Scrum Master working with developers. Yeah, it's great to see your progress. And yeah, thank you, Igor and Leonard. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I gotten to this point where, yeah, I reflected on this related to, like, you have this imposter syndrome, like just being young. Like I'm 37 or something now, and just being young, dealing with imposter syndrome, you want to prove yourself. Like at the age of 37, especially having kids, I just don't fucking care anymore. I don't care what people think about my programming skills. I don't I have no ambition to be the best programmer in the world. I don't like I of course I care about my code, and I can get defensive about my code, but I don't care about doing things my way. Like, I have accepted me and my abilities, and I think that's good enough. And then if people want to listen in on that, that's super fun. And just that fact that you kind of dare to share your thought process, that in itself has enough value. You don't have to share that thought process. You can disagree with that thought process, but just sharing the thought process in itself is a good thing. Yeah, exactly. Anyways, I'm diverging. Anyways, let's just do this without the context. So we're just going to say get changed data, and this might be undefined. Yeah, and it's not going to return an Excalidraw context. And so, okay, so we're just going to do this for now. Later we'll actually like compare these two things and update the elements so that you have like a merged thing. But for now, let's just try this. I just want to see how it looks. So here we would have to grab the data, and we have the current context, and we would say change data. So this is the thing. this is the thing where we kind of have to do this check, which ideally you wouldn't like have to do this. If change data, we are going to say state updating from pair. Let's see. Let's use the current context because there's other stuff there as well. Updating from pair, and then the date, and then we'll add the data. And if not, we'll just return the current context, right? So we're saying here that whenever we get a subscription update, go and grab the new data. If we actually have new data, move to updating from pair with that data, or just return the current context. That's what we need to express. It's just like what do we put where. Now the thing is, I just don't. What I would love to do is I would love to like just put this right in there, but I really can't because I have to check first if it has actually changed, and then I have to do something with it. And I don't want to run this function twice because it's going to have logic for like merging the two data sets. That's a necessary calculation. But this isn't too bad. Like this is very dry, right? Maybe we'll find a better way to express this. Okay, anyways, so subscription update. So the one thing that we're not handling here is that, as you saw in the effect, we are expressing here that we want this syncing or this subscription to run in these states. But we can't ensure that we actually listen to that subscription update in the same states. This is something we manually have to keep in sync. Like, what states are we actually subscribing? In what states are we actually dealing with action dispatches from that subscription? Which is not ideal. So, for example, if I introduce a new state, I would say, oh, this state should also include the subscription. But then I would also have to remember to add, and I might forget to handle the subscription update. So that's definitely a source of bugs. Yeah, maybe there's a way around that. Shit, I'm lack of time. We haven't gotten any further. Oh my god. Yeah, how would we ensure that the subscription is active? So this is quite interesting. Actually, I did a podcast and we talked about like separating the effects from the state itself. So like you have the actual state up here, and then you have the effects down here being reactive to that state, which is a very high degree of separation. And that's kind of what you get. Like there's benefits to that, but there's also not benefits to that. So this is one of the not benefits. It's that you can't tie the state that is being consumed by the effect with the actual state. Meaning that if we had, for example, an Elm-like architecture where the reducer didn't just return the state, it would also return what effects to run. Then you would have a tighter coupling between these things, but then you would also get into a different problem. You would have to remember to actually return the effects. So you might have multiple action handlers that moves into the same state, and then you forget to add the effect on one of them, for example. So it doesn't really get better. But yeah, let's just put like a note in the back of our heads for this one. And let's just introduce it now for edit. And this is something we can test. Excalidraw change. What do we get here? We get app state, elements, version. Okay, so now we moved into updating from pair. This should update, do an update scene in Excalidraw. I can show you, I actually did an implementation of that. Let's see, components, Excalidraw canvas. Here you can see I'm passing down the state. and here you see the effect. So we have an effect that says when the state changes and that state is updating from pair, we're updating the scene with the new data. And that will trigger an on change inside Excalidraw, which we're actually dealing with here, Excalidraw change. So we update the scene, we get back, and we want to go into dirty state again. What was I saying? Yeah, so my only worry is that, is this synchronous behavior? Like moving to updating from pair is synchronous. Like React runs synchronously. Well, this is not synchronous, like running the actual effect, and updating the scene causing the change might not be synchronous. So there is like one tiny place there where we can't ensure that, but maybe it doesn't matter. The thing is that, what I mean is that you might be in updating from pair and you're actually making, well, yeah, I guess it doesn't matter, because if you're making a change, you would make a change and then you would move into dirty and you could continue making change. Yeah, this doesn't matter. Yeah, it's good. Anyways, so we move into this one. We have, oh, do we need an image there? Let's see, current context. So we just want the new app state, the elements, and the version. Do we get the version here? Oh yeah, I do. Okay, so the only thing I'm not sure about now is that we have these two different, let's look at the overview. So we have edit, which we're going to test now. Let's try to get that test running green. But then what if you're in syncing, for example, and then that sync will actually go through, but you're in syncing and then you get an update from a different user and that moves you into updating from pair. That syncing will go through. But maybe, yeah, because we do have this sync success, which gives you the image and the metadata. So the thing is, we might get a sync success while we're updating from pair. But if we're updating from pair, we'll move into dirty, which will create the image, do a new sync. Yeah. This is really tricky. This is really tricky. I have a feeling that there's something we're not dealing with in terms of getting updates from a different user. Like we might be in some, like it doesn't matter if we're syncing or syncing dirty, because we're always going to move back to dirty. But if we, okay, so we're not getting the image, but we move back to dirty and that will run the sync again. And that will update the image and everything else. So it's kind of like we're just postponing it. So to put it in other words, if we get an update from a different user while we are syncing on this client, it means that there is a chance that the current syncing won't like go through or won't be updated in the, it will be updated on the server, but it won't be updated in the client. But that doesn't matter, because this update from the other user will move this client into dirty mode again. and it will do try to do another sync. So that we kind of, yeah, by moving from updating from pair to dirty, we always make sure that let's make sure we have the latest version here. I guess there is this chance of the image not updating, because if I, god damn it, so if I'm syncing, we save. Okay, no, the image will always update. Like, so here we're dispatching sync success, but we might be in like updating from pair mode, which means that this doesn't actually run, but we still store the image. And then we move into dirty, and that dirty might not run because we're suddenly on the same version. But again, if we get an update from a different user while we're trying to sync our own thing and we move to dirty, we won't be on the same version anymore, right? Because we're producing a brand new version with the changes from the other user and our own user, which means that from dirty, we will actually have a new sync and updating the data. Yes, I'm pretty sure about this. I'm pretty sure about this. God damn it. Okay, let's see. Let's try to make the test run. Earn test, watch Excalidraw, index test, yes. Yes, and I haven't added the actual, god damn it, I have a meeting now. It's not like super use subscription effect. Did I actually add it? No, I didn't. Use subscription effect, user ID, Excalidraw. Okay. Oh, but this is nice. We actually have it running. Oh, of undefined. Why is that undefined? Didn't I expose the storage? I did. And then here, use environment, storage. Why does it say cannot read properties subscribe to changes of undefined? Oh, this is a different test. Oh, I've broken all the tests now. But it seems that this is undefined for some reason. How can that be undefined? Test. Create subscription mock. Subscribe to changes. I don't understand this. How can that be undefined? It's right there. Okay, should go to unfocus. Oh, maybe. Oh, sorry. I think I have some tests. Like now we're suddenly depending on the storage in our tests, but I didn't have to use the storage previously. So we have to add it to all our tests now because it's actually subscribing. That's the thing. Storage. There we go. Yes. So that means like if you run these tests and it yells at you about an environment thing that's undefined, it basically means, okay, the feature actually needs access to this environment effect. So if you haven't exposed it as a mock, then I won't be able to do this. Okay, so it's should go to update from pair when receiving subscription update in edit. So we are on state edit. We have mocked out our stuff. And let's say this is version 1. And now we want this to move into updating from pair, but it doesn't do that. Oh, it does do that. Oh yeah, because we checked the version, right? If it was the same version, we didn't do anything. But when we actually change the version, we move into this. So we have a successful test. Awesome. So what we can do tomorrow is that we need to make sure that this also works in our other intended states. I wonder how we should do that. Like, should we recreate this test for every single state? There has to be a better way to do this. And then we actually want to write the function for comparing these elements and merging them together based on the version they have. And then we'll actually try it. Like, remember, I haven't written a single piece. I haven't looked at the application even. We've just been talking about how this should actually work. The different states the application is in. When do we actually want the subscription to run? And like the details of what does it mean that it changed? How do we do the merging of the elements? But this is what, for me, this is what programming is really about. It's what we've been doing in this session. And if you were here with me, we would have like used a whiteboard and talked about all this stuff. And that's what I like about these explicit states, is that it forces you to really think about, like, if we didn't have these explicit states, we would just add the subscription. Like, we wouldn't have to talk about when should this subscription actually work. But having these explicit states, it forces you to think about that. And that's a good thing, because you don't necessarily want that subscription to always run. But if I just implemented it, that's the way it would work. And then I would probably get some weird bugs at some point. I'm not saying that this won't introduce a bug, but it's a different kind of bug. It's a bug where I didn't consider, like, my reasoning was wrong, right? There was a state that the subscription should run where I thought it shouldn't run, but it was a conscious decision to do that. Well, if I just implemented a subscription, like, without reasoning, like, that would be a different kind of bug. Okay, cool. That's it for now. I'll have to jump into this meeting. Let's finish this tomorrow. Okay, have a great day. Bye-bye.